So I'm Johnny DL, and hey internet. Um, right, I had a chance to have a think about the two different sorts of books that I tend to listen to on audiobook, and they roughly fall into two categories. There's science fiction, fantasy books, which tend to be um, contemporary or slightly futuristic, and uh, adult reads, and just teen books in general. And I've sort of spotted the one difference between adult books and teen books. Um, and I don't think it's size, because you can have adult books or kids books that are the same length. You can have them be novels that are um, like massive, like Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, or Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which were really thick books, which were teen books by my definition. Um, and you can have really, really thin books, which are most definitely adult books by my definition. For example, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's one that jumps out, and another one is um, the Enders series, which I've been listening to, as you know, both Enders series and Enders Shadow series. And I think that the difference between them is just one thing. Um, it's all about perception, and from a very for kids from a very early age have to be taught that different people can know different things, and it takes them a while to realise that one person doesn't know what somebody else knows. Um, and right up until age, well, to be fair, I still do this at age 23, so I'm still learning. Um, the but certainly up until early early teens, kids think that everything they learn that's new is new for everybody. They come home and um, certainly before puberty hits, they go to their parents and they say, "I learned this today. I've and isn't it new? Isn't it wonderful? Can I show you how it works?" And parents put up with it, and they do a fantastic job of feigning interest, because parents obviously already know 90% of the stuff that kids are going to come home with, especially before puberty, whether it's maths, English, science, um, new big long words. The curriculum hasn't changed an awful lot in the past several decades, really. Okay, science has advanced and some of literature has advanced, but realistically, there's not a huge amount that's changed in mathematics. And um, nowadays, we still study the war poets just as much as we study anything else in England. Um, so things haven't changed all that much. And even if they had changed a huge amount, the adults in the world have had chance to live through the dawn of um, certain things. Like if Harry Potter all of a sudden became the book that everybody studied in 2040, when I maybe have kids. No great guarantee of that, but maybe if we're lucky. Um, I would be 50 by that point. Well, 49 by that point. Um, so yeah, if that happened, then what kids are being asked, I would probably know the answer to, because it's something I grew up with, and I lived through it as a experience rather than was forced into it um, as a child. and I enjoyed it, but they're gonna really hate it because it's schoolwork and exams. Um, but because of that, the nature of teens and the fact that nature of children in general, the fact that they don't understand that other people can know stuff, um, makes telling stories to them a little bit difficult. Many of the stories I have grown to really like in audiobook form are stories with lots of different perspectives and lots of separate storylines that all converge at the end. Um, and I've seen this a lot in a lot of short books, a lot of long books. Um, the the stories will jump about from place to place. Um, they might jump about in time a little bit. They will reveal something by one person and then reveal it a second time to another person. And as adults, we understand that, and we make sense of the world that way. We understand that um, she knows this and he doesn't know the same thing, and I could tell him or somebody else could tell him, and at some point he will learn it or he might not. Um, and we understand that, but as kids and teens, those sorts of ideas haven't solidified fully, and a lot of the literature that's written for them is actually written, and I've only recently realised this, with the single perspective in mind. Um, okay, Harry Potter, you get to see a little bit outside of Harry's life, though certainly in the later books you get to see beyond Harry's little world, and see what other people are doing in the story. But a lot of the time, anything that's known is known to Harry. It's not known to. It might not be known to everybody else in the book, but because we're watching it all from Harry's perspective, almost everything that gets found out by anybody gets told to Harry within a chapter or two, in most cases. Um, so all the way through, everything that we know, Harry knows, and that's true of a lot of teen books, and it's true of a lot of. It's certainly true of kids' books because you can't write a kids' book without thinking that way. But I've realised it's true of teen books as well, and it's sort of a little sad because there are some brilliant stories out there that a lot of people won't get the chance to read because when they have the time to read it, that kids have, when they have the ability to just absorb and take in everything, they're not going to be able to access the material so easily. Um, this happens on so many different scales, um, but it's made me think with the books that I've been reviewing. Wake, Watch, and Wonder is brilliant, and it's predominantly from one perspective. But you then the whole world shifts towards the end of the series, and you get to see it from a completely different perspective. Um, and the same is true of the Shadow series. You have a story, and then you have a separate story that's at the same time in the same world, and they cross over a bit, but they don't all come together until the end. The Millennium series is the same. We get to see a lot of um, the main character. Um, what's her name? The girl with the dragon tattoo. We get to see a lot of her life from the perspective of the Millennium author, um, Eric Bergstrom. Bergstrom. But we don't, and we know that the girl is learning things and knows things that Eric doesn't, and we get to see completely different storylines at the same time, from perspective of different people, and so all the side characters get taught the story from earlier in the book rather than just assuming they know it. And that's the way life works. And it's it's a bit sad to think that we've that the literature has gone that way, because I do think, although we write that way and tell teens that this is the way to that books work and this is how stories work, and then change it as they get to adults, I think that a lot of a certain number of kids could cope with adult literature very, very easily, and we need to be pushing that into them a bit. Um, Maybe not pushing Lord of the Rings and um, as a text, or Shakespeare as a text into them, because the stories are so old and written in so old language that um, it's difficult to take them in without the added extra bits of um, new direction. But other books, I'm sure kids are capable of taking in. I certainly think that the End of Shadow series is a perfect teen read in many respects, but it does have this branching of stories which makes the world explode and come to life and show how everything is separate in so many ways but interconnected as well. Um, so yeah, it's that. Those are my thoughts. I didn't really have much of a direction other than to say I had finally worked it out. Um, and I think I'm going to my next book. I'm actually going to review, other than the Shadow series, is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I've actually been listening to that today instead of um, starting the uh, next Shadow book, Shadow of the Giant, because I didn't want to lose track of um, the Enders. Sorry, um, shadow puppets in my head, and I wanted to take myself away from the Shadow series a bit so that I can come back to it again with a fresh mind. Um, so yeah, I think I'm going to actually do a team book next, which, as far as I can see from um, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, um, so far, that book most certainly is. Um, so yeah, that's all for today. Comment, rate, and subscribe. Um, and check out the links in the description. I have Twitter, AskFM, Google Plus, and my email address. You're quite free to use those however you wish. Send me stuff, ask me questions, the whole 9 yards. Johnny DL out.